Good morning. I am so grateful to be with you all this morning. I'm the Reverend Amy Kindred. My pronouns are she, her. For many of us, for me, my chest has been heavy all week. And yet, I learned from working with the Immokalee workers who struggled and strived so hard for 1 cent more per bushel for tomato, when I asked them, how can you march and dance and sing to music when the system is so unjust? They said, we cry, we get upset, we're angry, but we dance and we sing. And that's how we continue to push to make change. I just wanted to share that with you this morning because some of us are more privileged than others, but we know this work for justice is ongoing. You heard someone say, do something, do something, do something. That is not over. We will continue to do something, do something, do something. In the meantime, I don't know where that's coming from. You're working on it? In the meantime, we must gather in community when we can on Zoom or here in person. If you need a hug, go up to somebody and say, I need a hug. I know the fist bump and the handshaking is there, but for some of us, you might need a hug. Please, this is the place to say, I need a hug. And in the meantime, we come together for a message, an occasional message to give a little hope to our days, maybe learning something we didn't know. Maybe we come for an opportunity to laugh. A Christian, a Muslim, and an atheist all die on the same day. They all approach the pearly gates of St. Peter, and he awaits them. St. Peter calls the first person up to the podium, iPad. He has embraced technology. iPad in hand, and says, what religion are ya? I'm a Christian, says the person. Very well, continue on, and you will be in room 16. St. Peter says, be very quiet around room 8. The next person strolls forward. St. Peter, with the iPad in hand, says, what religion are ya? I swear he's from Minnesota. I am a Muslim, the person said. Very well, you will be in room 29. Just be very quiet around room 8. The person moved on. The third and final person of that day walks forward, and St. Peter, iPad in hand, says, what religion are ya? I am an atheist, the person says. Very well, you will be in room 56. Just be very quiet around room 8. The person nodded and began to move to the assigned room. But then the person paused and backed up and said, if I may, why must I be quiet around room 8? St. Peter replied, room 8 is where the Catholics are, and they think they're the only ones up here. That's pluralism. That's also part of our universalist heritage, meaning all will be saved. All deserve a place. Amen. For more than a decade, beginning in 1916 through the 20s, Unitarian Reverend John Dietrich and Unitarian Reverend Curtis Reese preached humanism to their congregations, launching the debates within Unitarianism about the merits of strictly human-centered, scientifically minded, ethically focused religion. Religion, the base root for that word is to bind, how we come together. Remember, early Unitarianism promoted the idea of not the Trinity of God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but of a unity of God. And then these two fellows began honing the focus from the pulpit, not about staying focused on God, but focusing on humanity and the need for people to be one another's caretakers. By 1933, the debate within our Unitarian circles began to subside, and the first Humanist Manifesto was created. Recall, our roots are Christian roots, Judeo-Christian, and then things began to change, which is where we are today, that all are included here. But in 1933, the first Humanist Manifesto was created. All these years later, we Unitarian Universalists heartily affirm pluralism within our congregations. You don't have to give up a personal understanding to be part of this community. We bring our whole selves here. That is, we are communities filled with individuals who may have personal understandings and rituals that help them to cope in a complex world filled with cruelty. But we have not stopped, I hope, but have we stopped fighting about belief systems that we may claim the Unitarian heritage of care for one another, our communities, individuals in other parts of the world, and the earth herself? Are we still arguing about who is right and who is wrong when it comes to belief understanding? So let me remind you, the first Humanist Manifesto was created in 1933, and it was signed by 30 men. Women were not invited yet. Dang it. I hear. Anyway. I'm grateful that I'm a tradition that welcomes a woman to the pulpit. We are aware there are traditions that still exist that a woman is not invited to speak from the pulpit. It's important to note that a third of those signers were Unitarians. The first manifesto included this statement, quote, "Any religion that can hope to be a dynamic force must be shaped by the needs of that age." Going back to that living tradition aspect. What was happening in 1933 here and abroad? Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany in January that year by the then German President Paul von Hindenburg, who received a letter from a former General Erich Ludendorff stating, quote, "This accursed man will cast our Reich into the abyss and bring inconceivable misery," unquote. The next day, Hitler promised to offer parliamentary democracy. Okay, may your hearts be lifted. Don't let that stay too long. What was going on here in the United States? The Depression was raging. In 1933, 25% of all workers and 37% of non-farm workers alone lost their jobs. How did the repercussion of these events influence the rise of humanism? If your personal belief system involves a God who will take care of you, and awful things happen, such as the rise of Nazism and the Great Depression, when suffering, death, hunger, and malnutrition were raging, one's thought might turn from "God will provide" to wait, we must provide for each other in every way we can, God or no God. I, too, am the keeper of humanity. Let's explore the first manifesto created in 1933. Due to time constraints, I will only share a few excerpts, but here are a few from Manifesto 1. Mike Kahn is going to read them for me.
From the Manifesto. From the Manifesto, 1 November 1933. 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 The time has come for widespread recognition of the radical changes in religious beliefs throughout the modern world. The time has passed for mere revision of traditional attitudes. Science and economic change have disrupted the old beliefs. Religion, the world over, are under the necessity of coming to terms with new conditions created by a vastly increased knowledge and experience. And then the document went on to list 15 statements, which I will read 3 of those. Number 4, humanism recognizes that humanity's religious culture and civilization, as clearly depicted by anthropology and history, are the product of a gradual development due to his interaction with his natural environment and with his social heritage. The individual born into a particular culture is largely molded by that culture. Number 5, humanism asserts that the nature of the universe depicted by modern science makes unacceptable any supernatural or cosmic guarantees of human values. Obviously, humanism does not deny the possibility of realities as yet undiscovered, but it does insist that the way to determine the existence and values of any and all realities is by means of intelligent inquiry and by the assessment of the relations to human needs. Religions must formulate its hope and plans in the light of scientific spirit and method. And number 14, the humanists are firmly convinced that existing acquisitive and profit motive society has shown itself to be inadequate and that a radical change in methods, controls, and motives must be instituted. A socialized and cooperative economic order must be established to the end that there's equitable distribution of the means of life. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world.
Stream of thought sound familiar to you? The second manifesto was written in 1973. Many of us know what happened in 1973. Women rose up and demanded rights for health care. Roe versus Wade almost made it 50 years. So 1973 manifesto.
50 years ago.
Almost, yeah.
Almost 50 years ago. Is it on? Closer? Those who sign Humanist Manifesto 2 do not claim that they are setting forth a binding creed. Their individual views would be stated in widely varying ways. This statement is, however, reaching for a vision in a time that needs direction. How telling. It is social analysis in an effort at consensus. New statements should be developed to supersede this, but for today, it is our conviction that humanism offers an alternative that can serve present-day needs and guide humankind toward the future. A humanist outlook will tap the creativity of each human being and provide the vision and courage for us to work together. This outlook emphasizes the role human beings can play in their own spheres of action. The decades ahead call for dedicated, clear-minded men and women able to marshal the will, intelligence, and cooperative skills for shaping a desirable future. Humanism can provide the purpose and inspiration that so many seek. It can give personal meaning and significance to life. Humanism traces its roots from ancient China, classical Greece, and Rome through the Enlightenment. to the scientific revolution of the modern world. But views that merely reject theism are not equivalent to humanism. They lack commitment to the positive belief in the possibilities of human progress and the values central to it. Many within religious groups believing in the future of humanism now claim humanist credentials. Humanism is an ethical process through which we all can move above and beyond the divisive particulars, heroic personalities, dogmatic creeds, and ritual customs of past religions or their mere negation.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Mike. Manifesto 2 also goes on to list various categories, including the first, speaking to that of religion. In the best sense, religion may inspire dedication to the highest ethical ideals. The cultivation of moral devotion and creative imagination is an expression of genuine spiritual experience and aspiration. A reminder, the root for the word spiritual or spirit is breath, implying that every person that has a breath has validity and dignity. Continuing, we believe, however, that traditional dogmatic or authoritarian religions that place revelation, God, ritual, or creed above human need and experience do a disservice to the human species. While there is much that we do not know, humans are responsible for what we are or will become. No deity will save us. We must save ourselves. So the third manifesto was written in 2003, according to the American Humanist Association, which, by the way, a person said, this is a rough week. Why is your sermon Happy Human? And I said, do you know what that symbol is? It's called the happy human. So that's why we're talking about humanism and the manifestos today. So 2003, the byline for the American Humanist Association, and it's a website, says, good without God, which I have to note can be interpreted differently in these two ways. One can be good without waiting for good merit given by God, or one does not need a belief in God to do good. So we know the biblical scriptures are contradictory. Even in the Humanist Association, those two statements are contradictory. On the other hand, they're implying you can have your belief in God and still be the one that says, I am my brother and sister, my siblings, the strangers, the trans, and the queer community. I am their keeper. Here are a few kernels of interest from Manifesto 3. This document is part of an ongoing effort to manifest in clear and positive terms the conceptual boundaries of humanism, not what we must believe. For secular humanists, I'm going to remind you, remember, that might be your private beliefs, but it is not the only true held belief about humanism. That is yours. It is in the sense that we affirm the following: knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. Humanists find that science is the best method for determining this knowledge, as well as for solving problems and developing beneficial technologies. We also recognize the value of new departures in thought. The arts, this is the first time someone is speaking my language. The arts and inner experience. The arts, the composition of music that lift us up. We welcome the challenges of the future and are drawn to and undaunted by the yet to become. If you hear nothing else today and somebody says, what did the preacher say today? She said that we need to say we welcome the challenges of the future and are drawn to and undaunted by the yet to be known. Life's fulfillment emerges from individual participation in the service of human ideals, and humans are social by nature and find meaning in relationships. Now, after all that I have shared with you, do you see that our Unitarian Universalist meeting place is a pluralist organism, living, breathing, growing, and changing? All sources of authority, that is, understanding and experience, can and must coexist. Frankly speaking, I don't think the humanist-theist controversy, which was there in about the 20s and the late 20s, when within our circles there was argument about you have to have a belief in God, and other people saying, I don't care about that belief in God. What I'm saying is we're to take care of each other and not wait. That is over. And in some UU circles, it still absolutely baffles me. Sometimes I have heard people say, what, you're a Christian? Don't do that. Don't do that. I've heard, I know things and you don't. Let's put that process, that statement to bed. I say with conviction that we in this room and on Zoom, this Unitarian Universalist community will move along with one another on this path of life together without pushing one another into the ditch or off the UU path. Marvin Shaw said, the basis of unity in Unitarian Universalist congregations, churches, and fellowships, it is a community, a congregation to me. For some, it is a church. It is your personal preference for what you want to call this community. It is Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. It is our gathering place where we speak of meaningful things. So a common quest and the affirmation of the values necessary to our furtherance, to the work that we have. Our liberal religious societies are not based on agreement as to what to believe, but on agreement as to how to live in a complex world. We agree in affirming the value of a free and wide-ranging inquiry into religious belief, and we vow to establish an atmosphere in which the religious quest is nurtured and encouraged. So just to clarify, one may identify as a humanist and a theist. It's funny, there was a joke that said, how do you turn an atheist into theist? You give him a little space. Atheist, a space, theist. Having a belief in a divine holy element, you may have that. Or as an atheist, having no belief in God. Within a Unitarian Universalist community, we no longer need to argue who is right and wrong. That is not here anymore. We are not there. The Reverend Dr. William Schultz, former president of the UUA from 2010 to 2016. He was also president of the UU Service Committee that I spoke about today from 2010 to 16. And he was the executive director of Amnesty International from 94 to 2006. He wrote an excellent article in the UU World. It's old, but it's powerful. He wrote his doctoral dissertation on the first Manifesto. At the time, some of the original people who signed that were still alive, so he interviewed them. Only one person, Reverend Lester Mondale, ever talked about religion in the terms of experience. While the others spoke entirely about belief, Mondale talked about how human experience also informs a religious understanding. We know this. The two, Schultz and Mondale, agreed on this statement. Religion is about the longing and lament, the laughter and the light of life. In the article, the author spoke about George Santayana, who said, religion is the love of life in the consciousness of its impotence. For example, oh, this is beautiful. This came up in this article. It was like, for example, imagine the plight of Winnie the Pooh. Remember Winnie the Pooh, who visited his friend Rabbit and got stuck? He was eating honey, and as he was visiting with Rabbit, who was feeding him honey, he tried to leave and got stuck as he left. He was stuck in the doorway of Rabbit's house, but he made a simple request. Would you be so kind as to read a sustaining book such as would help and comfort a wedged bear in great tightness. Isn't that beautiful? The Reverend Dr. Schultz explained that humanism alone contains no book to help one along when one experiences suffering. I also was thinking and reading about it. Well, you could think about this from a scientific, Winnie the Pooh, if you didn't eat so much, you wouldn't be in that position. And the only way you're going to get out is if you starve yourself. Well, is that helpful if you're stuck there day after day? He also said this: what is always helpful, Schultz said, and absolutely necessary is to look kindly to the world, to be bold in pursuit of its repair, and to be comfortable in the embrace of its splendor. I know no better term, said Schultz, Reverend Dr. Schultz, for what I seek than an encounter with the holy. Dear ones, after a really rough week of great concern, worry, fear for our nation and her people, maybe most of us feel at the very least like Pooh stuck in a tight spot, can't go backwards, can't go forwards. Let us keep in mind the Unitarian theologian Theodore Parker's statement in 1853. He said, we cannot understand, 1853, before the Civil War, did you hear that? He said, we cannot understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one and our eyes reach but a little way. We cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight, but we can divine it by conscience, and we surely know that it bends toward justice. Please hear me when I say this morning, I echo Reverend Dr. William Barber Jr.'s words. He's with the Poor People's Campaign. He said the problem of low wages and death by poverty were not adequately addressed by either major political party in this election season. Our efforts to address poverty must continue. These efforts cannot cease no matter what, because 800 people a day still die from poverty and low wages. Our efforts must continue. Our efforts must continue. I marched with Reverend Dr. William Barber Jr. in North Carolina. This must be 8 years ago, who was saying, we have to keep addressing, we have to do something to address the needs of the poor people. Please hear me and join me this week in this mantra. May it be stuck in your head like an earworm all week. I am in this fight for equity and justice for the long haul. Can you repeat after me? I am in this fight for equity and justice for the long haul. After me. My actions will be focused locally in community. My actions will be focused locally in community and care for my loved ones, friends, and those who need help in the days ahead. And care for my loved ones, friends, and those who need help in the days ahead. And I will seek beauty. Don't forget this part. In all my living moments, that sustains me. Don't forget that last part. May it be so. Thank you for being here.